The cold hum of the starship's engines thrummed beneath my feet, a deep, resonant pulse that seemed to echo the steady beat of my own Nexari heart. Outside the viewport, the swirling violet nebula stretched endlessly, colors bleeding into each other like the memory of a distant storm. I stood alone on the observation deck, the scent of recycled air sharp in my nostrils, mingled faintly with the metallic tang of the ship's bulkheads. It was a place of quiet, one I sought whenever the ghosts of battle clawed too fiercely at my mind. But today, the silence felt uneasy, pregnant with recollection. I have fought alongside many species in my lifetime, faced horrors and wonders that would unravel the minds of lesser warriors, but none left an imprint as strange, as unyielding, as the humans. Their names, Maya Anderson, David Foster, resonate in my memory like a drumbeat, impossible to ignore. It was not just their skill with weapons or their tactical cunning. It was something deeper, a bond unlike any I have seen in my millennia of service. The Nexari have always understood pack dynamics, our clans, our kinship rituals, the unspoken network of loyalty that binds us. Yet, what I witnessed among the humans shattered every assumption. Their pack bonds were a living, breathing force, a complex weave of emotion and instinct that confounded our most brilliant psychologists. Quinlex, our foremost specialist in interspecies social behavior, studied them for cycles and finally resigned in frustration. He called it an enigma too volatile, too raw to be cataloged. I call it the reason we still survive. I remember the first time I truly saw it, the moment that changed the fate of a campaign, and perhaps all future wars. The battlefield was a desolate planet orbiting the dying star of Vemthar. Jagged black spires jutted from the cracked earth, casting long, twisted shadows beneath a crimson sky. The air was thin, bitter with the scent of ionized dust and burning metal. The Nexari assault force had stumbled into a well-fortified enemy nest, an ambush designed to fracture our lines and break our morale. Chaos erupted instantly. Blaster fire hissed through the scarlet haze, echoing like thunderclaps as warriors fell and screamed. Among us, the humans fought differently. Commander Maya Anderson moved with a predatory grace, her voice cutting through the noise like a clarion call. Even over the comms, her tone was calm, unyielding, a beacon in the storm. She was no mere soldier. She was a conductor orchestrating a symphony of survival. I flanked her squad, observing the strange rhythm of their interaction. Unlike the rigid, hierarchical commands of the Nexari, the humans communicated in bursts of instinctive gestures, quick glances, subtle shifts in stance. Their eyes, so expressive, so alive, carried unspoken messages, a language of trust and challenge, of reassurance and warning. It was as if every member of the squad was an extension of the other, their minds linked in a way I could neither quantify nor resist. David Foster, a soldier barely older than one of my apprentices, crouched beside Maya, his breathing steady despite the carnage around them. When an enemy sniper locked onto Maya's position, Foster's reaction was instantaneous. Without orders, without hesitation, he threw himself into the line of fire, absorbing the shot meant for her. The burning agony in his chest was a testament to his sacrifice, but what struck me most was the look in his eyes afterward. Not pain, not fear, but fierce determination. They fought not as individuals, but as a single, pulsing organism. When one fell, the others did not recoil or falter. They surged forward, a wave of raw willpower and shared purpose. The bond that linked them was more than strategy or discipline. It was something elemental, primal. A force that defied our clinical analyses. Back on the ship, Quinlex pored over hours of recorded data, his multiple eyes narrowing in frustration. The human psychologists' notes were far from conclusive, filled with contradictions and emotional upheaval. Their pack bonds are not mere social constructs, he muttered, voice tinged with disbelief. They are biological, psychological, and spiritual. We cannot dissect them with our tools. They resist definition. I watched him struggle, felt the weight of his resignation when he finally handed me the data, his antennae drooping in defeat. Yet, even as he quit, I knew this was only the beginning. The human pack bond was a battlefield weapon of unparalleled potency, an invisible armor forged not from alloy or energy fields, but from the raw, unyielding force of connection. It was why Maya's squad moved like a living machine, why even the most grievous wounds could be shrugged off in the heat of combat. They trusted each other with a ferocity that transcended survival. It was sacred. As I stood there, gazing out at the nebula, I could almost hear their voices in the silence. The sharp orders, the quiet reassurances, the laughter that sometimes erupted amid the carnage. It was a bond that defied logic but commanded respect. Our enemies trembled when they learned of it, our allies envied it. That bond changed everything. The Nexari military doctrine, once rigid and hierarchical, began to shift. We adapted, imitated, and learned from the humans. Their pack dynamic became a model, a blueprint for unity in the face of annihilation. But understanding it was a different matter entirely. I remember the smell of scorched earth mingled with the coppery scent of blood, the taste of dust scratching the back of my throat as I fought beside them. The feel of the cold metal of my rifle in my hands, the sharp crackle of comms as orders and reassurances flew between them like sparks. I remember the rhythm of their breathing, the synchronized steps, the shared focus that bound them. A symphony of survival and trust. Later, when the battle was won and the dust settled into a ghostly silence, Maya approached me. Her eyes met mine, steady and unyielding, and in that moment, I understood. It was not just their bond. It was their willingness to lay down their lives for one another without hesitation. A willingness born from something deeper than training or honor a living. Breathing faith in their pack, the psychologists quit because they tried to analyze what was beyond analysis. The Nexari military adapted because it had to, because the human pack bond was a force of nature, wild and uncontainable. And I, Nexkel, veteran of countless wars, carry the memory of that bond like a scar, proof that even in the cold expanse of space, the fire of humanity burns fierce and bright. That fire has changed the course of history. And now, as I prepare for yet another campaign, I carry with me the lessons learned from the humans, the strength of their pack bonds, the resilience born from unbreakable trust. The galaxy may never fully understand them, but we all fear and respect what that bond can do. The story of the human pack is not just a tale of war. It is a testament to the power of connection, the unyielding will to survive and protect. It is why, even now, the Nexari remember. Because once you have seen their bond in battle, nothing is ever the same again. The air hung thick with the metallic tang of ionized plasma and the acrid scent of burning circuitry. The battlefield sprawled before us, a shattered wasteland where the detritus of war lay scattered like the bones of some ancient beast. I, Nexkel, stood rigid atop a fractured ridge, my multi-jointed limbs tense, my many eyes flicking toward the human lines. The Nexari had fought countless wars, but never had I seen anything quite like this. The way these humans endured. Our sensors had picked up the enemy's heavy artillery barrage minutes ago, and the ground still trembled faintly beneath our feet. Yet, the humans remained unmoving, their posture unyielding as if rooted by some unseen force. I felt the vibrations through the rocky soil, a low-frequency thunder of survival that resonated within me. The Nexari were known for resilience, but even my species' famed tenacity paled against this raw human endurance. I adjusted my comm link, channeling a silent signal to Quinlex, the scientist assigned to analyze human combat behavior. His avatar flickered on the holo display beside me, his violet iridescent skin almost luminescent against the dim battlefield light. Observe. I transmitted, voice steady but layered with incredulity. They do not flinch. The human line was led by Commander Maya Anderson, a woman whose reputation had already spread among the Nexari as a living legend. Her figure was etched clearly against the haze, standing tall amidst the chaos. Unlike many commanders who directed from fortified command bunkers, she was here, at the forefront, a living beacon of resolve. Her soldiers, including the young David Foster at her side, mirrored her steadfastness. I noted the subtle cues, a slight tightening of jaw muscles, an unyielding gaze fixed upon the enemy, breaths measured and controlled. Despite incoming fire that could have pulverized lesser beings, they held their ground. Quinlex's voice crackled softly in my mind, layered with fascination. The human pack bond manifests as a collective will to endure. Their physiological responses: elevated adrenaline, endorphin spikes, synchronized heart rates, create a feedback loop reinforcing group cohesion. It is a biological symphony of resistance. I turned my gaze back to the carnage before us. The enemy artillery began firing again, launching a salvo of plasma shells that exploded in brilliant, scorching flashes. The heat radiated through the airwaves, but the humans barely shifted. Around me, my fellow Nexari soldiers staggered, shielding sensory organs, wincing at the blast waves. They were statues carved from adamantium resolve. I recalled my first encounter with human endurance during the siege of Alteris Prime, a brutal campaign that tested every fiber of my existence. Back then, human soldiers had endured days of relentless bombardment without retreating, sharing scant rations and sleeping upright in the muddy trenches. Their bodies soaked in sweat and grime, faces smeared with dirt and blood, yet their spirits remained unbroken. I had wondered then what primal force fueled such tenacity. Now, watching this tableau unfold, I understood it was no mere physical trait, but something deeper. A psychic bond that transcended individual pain, fears, and fatigue. A force that bound them as a pack, an unyielding collective that faced annihilation united. The scent of scorched earth mingled with the sharp, metallic tang of ruptured circuits, as a nearby Nexari walker exploded in a shower of sparks. The blast sent a resonant shock through my chassis. I winced, a reflex inherited through countless battles, but I saw no such momentary faltering in the human ranks. Instead, a ripple passed through their line, a subtle shift almost imperceptible but potent. It was a pulse of shared determination, a synchronous beating of hearts that reverberated like a drumbeat of survival. My multi-faceted eyes caught the glint of sweat on Maya's brow, the grit in David's narrowed glance. They were not invincible, but they were inexorable. Suddenly, a volley of enemy plasma bolts tore through the smoke-shrouded field, streaking with lethal grace. One bolt struck near David, sending shards of debris into the air. I saw him stumble, a microsecond of disorientation flashing across his face, but he caught himself, pushing forward with renewed vigor. Maya's voice rang out, steady and calm, though her words were lost to the static of our comm channels. Yet, I felt their meaning, the unspoken command anchored by trust and shared purpose. The human pack moved as one, an organism of flesh and will. In my years of command, I had seen similar formations, but never with this raw emotional undercurrent. The humans' bond was not just tactical, it was primal, forged in the furnace of shared hardship and survival instinct. Their pack was a living entity, each member's strength magnified by the others. Quinlex's analysis continued, more a breathless whisper than usual. Their neurology is wired for pack survival. Mirror neurons activate simultaneously, creating empathy so profound it suppresses pain perception and fear. This is why they do not break, even under sustained assault. I reflected on that, sensing the truth in his words. As a species, the Nexari prized individual accomplishment and honor in battle. Our warriors fought for glory, for their clan's name etched in celestial history. The humans fought for one another. The battlefield became a canvas of chaos and courage. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers, sending showers of blackened debris spiraling through the air. The sound was a cacophony. Metal tearing, flesh striking earth, the low groans of machinery succumbing to damage. Yet beneath this, I perceived an almost meditative pulse emanating from the humans, a steady heartbeat in the storm. Maya moved with calculated grace, issuing orders with a voice that balanced authority and reassurance. Her soldiers responded instinctively, shifting positions, creating rotating shields with their bodies, taking turns absorbing the brunt of the enemy's fire. Theirs was a choreography of survival, a dance performed in the crucible of war. I felt a pang of envy and admiration. Our Nexari units, while disciplined, often fractured under protracted siege, driven apart by instinctive self-preservation. These humans, however, melded pain and fear into a collective purpose that transcended the individual. As the artillery barrage waned, replaced by the shrieking approach of enemy aerial drones, the human pack tightened their formation. Shoulder to shoulder, faces set like stone. I could see the faint sheen of tears on some faces, hidden quickly, swallowed beneath fierce determination. For them, this was not just a battle. It was a testament to their shared existence. Suddenly, from the smoke emerged David Foster, moving with a staggering gait, clutching a wounded comrade to his chest. The weight and strain should have buckled him, yet his legs carried him forward, each step a defiance against the agony pulsing through his body. I felt the electromagnetic signature of his heart racing, adrenaline flooding his system, pain signals overridden by sheer will. Maya's eyes locked onto him, a flicker of worry masked behind a shield of command. Yet she did not falter. Instead, she advanced to meet them, her voice low and steady as she took over the wounded soldier. The exchange was seamless, a ritual honed over countless campaigns. I marveled at the human capacity for endurance, not merely physical, but emotional and psychological. Their pack bond did not simply protect them. It galvanized them to feats others deemed impossible. The ground beneath us shuddered again as another volley erupted, but the humans held firm. I could feel the rippling effect of their shared resolve traveling across the battlefield, infecting even the Nexari ranks nearby. Some of my own soldiers looked on with bewilderment, whispering in clipped Nexari tones about the inexplicable human drive. Quinlex's voice returned, more composed now but still tinged with awe. This is the first time our psychologists have admitted defeat. The complexity of the human pack bond surpasses our models. It is an evolutionary marvel, a synthesis of biology, culture, and perhaps something even deeper, something our instruments cannot quantify. I nodded silently, understanding his resignation. The human strength was not just in their bodies or weapons, but in this intangible essence, a relentless unity born from the crucible of survival and shared purpose. As the enemy retreated, battered and broken by the humans' unyielding defense, I felt a profound respect settle within me. These were not mere soldiers, they were the embodiment of endurance beyond limits. Their pack bond was a force that reshaped the battlefield, a living testament to the power of collective will. The sun began to pierce the lingering smoke, casting long shadows over the shattered terrain. The scent of burnt ozone mingled with the faint trace of wildflowers, crushed beneath boots and claws, a delicate reminder that even in war, life persisted. I glanced once more at Maya Anderson and her soldiers, their faces etched with exhaustion and determination. In this moment, I understood why every species now feared and respected Earth's military doctrine, not because of superior technology or firepower, but because of something far more potent: the human pack bond, an unbreakable chain forged in the fires of shared struggle, endurance, and unwavering loyalty. As dawn crept over the horizon, I felt the first seed of revelation take root in my mind. This was only the beginning. The humans had shown us a glimpse of what true endurance meant, and it would change the course of galactic warfare forever. The heavy hum of the Nexari warship's engine reverberated through the steel hull, a constant pulse beneath my boots as I stood on the observation deck. The stars outside glimmered cold and distant. But inside the ship, memories burned vivid and close. I traced the worn edges of the viewport, the glass scratched from countless battles, and I let my thoughts drift back to a different kind of war. One waged not just with firepower, but with the unfathomable strength of the human mind. I had fought alongside humans during the Silent Campaign, a brutal series of skirmishes on the shattered moon of Tycheros. It was there I first witnessed the phenomenon I would come to call the adaptive tactical minds, a term Quinlex, our lead psychologist, had coined before resigning in frustration. No other species could match the human's capacity to learn, improvise, and strategize in the heat of battle. Their minds adapted with a speed and fluidity that defied Nexari logic. Watching them was like observing a living, breathing algorithm that rewrote itself with every encounter. The air on Tycheros was thick with the metallic scent of spent ammunition and scorched soil. Smoke curled in lazy tendrils from the ruined cityscape, and the distant wail of sirens echoed like mournful ghosts. It was in this chaos that Maya Anderson, the human commander, orchestrated maneuvers that left even the most experienced Nexari tacticians scrambling to keep pace. Her presence was a steady drumbeat amid the cacophony, a calm force that anchored her soldiers and us alike. I remember the first engagement vividly. The silent forces had entrenched themselves in the labyrinthine tunnels beneath the city, their clawed troops emerging in waves to strike our flanks. Our initial strategy was to hold the line, to force a direct confrontation where our superior firepower could dominate. But the humans did not simply follow orders, they adapted. When a sudden cave-in blocked one of the main tunnels, Maya signaled for an immediate shift. Without hesitation, her squad split into smaller units, each taking different routes, flanking the enemy in unpredictable patterns. The ground beneath us trembled as explosions shattered the silence, sending shards of rock spraying like deadly hail. Human soldiers darted from cover to cover, their movements precise and fluid. What struck me was not just their physical agility, but the rapid reshaping of their tactics. Each soldier seemed to anticipate not only the enemy's moves, but those of their own comrades. It was as if a single consciousness guided them, an intricate web of thought and instinct intertwined. I had studied Nexari combat doctrine for decades, yet here were humans, defying every rule. Back on the ship, Quinlex had tried to analyze this anomaly. He pored over battlefield data, interrogated human prisoners, and even spent hours observing their training routines. But the more he learned, the more his confidence crumbled. The human's tactical plasticity was beyond his models. Each time he thought he had pinned down their methods, they shifted again, like shadows slipping through his grasp. During the second battle, deep within the ruined library of Tycheros, I saw a clear example of this adaptability. The humans faced a formidable silent demolition squad intent on collapsing the structure to trap us inside. Conventional wisdom dictated retreat or a full frontal assault, but Maya chose a third path. She ordered David Foster, a young soldier with a quick mind and steady hands, to lead a small team in using the enemy's explosives against them. I watched as Foster and his squad moved with deliberate stealth, weaving through the rubble-strewn halls. They repurposed the Silen's own charges, placing them strategically to collapse key supports and create new passages. The air was thick with dust and the acrid sting of burning circuits as the building groaned under the shifting weight. Foster's squad communicated in terse bursts, adjustments made on the fly as conditions changed. Their ability to improvise complex maneuvers under pressure was astounding. The explosion that followed was a symphony of destruction and creation. Walls fell, dust clouds billowed, but crucially, pathways opened where none existed before. The silent troops, caught off guard by this unexpected counterattack, faltered and were swiftly neutralized. It was a masterclass in adaptive tactics, one that left me questioning everything I thought I knew about battlefield strategy. That night, as the survivors gathered around makeshift fires, I felt the weight of the human experience pressing in. Their laughter, their shared stories, the way they comforted wounded comrades, it all spoke of a bond deeper than any I had known. Yet it was their minds, their ability to learn and adapt in real time, that truly set them apart. Quinlex, for all his academic prowess, could not reconcile this with Nexari's psychological paradigms. He admitted defeat and left the campaign, unable to continue. I often wondered what made the human mind so uniquely suited to warfare. Was it their evolutionary history, forged in the crucible of a harsh and unpredictable planet? Or was it something more intangible? A blend of culture, emotion, and sheer will. Whatever the cause, the effect was undeniable. Humans did not just fight, they transformed the battlefield itself, turning chaos into opportunity. In the weeks that followed, our alliance grew stronger, forged in the fires of shared struggle. The Nexari learned to trust human ingenuity, often deferring to their judgment in critical moments. Maya's command style was both commanding and inclusive, drawing out the best in her soldiers and allies alike. I watched as our disparate forces melded into a cohesive unit, each member contributing their strengths to overcome adversity. The final assault on the silent command center was a testament to this synergy. The facility was heavily fortified, surrounded by layers of defenses that seemed impenetrable. Yet, rather than rely solely on brute force, Maya devised a plan that leveraged every lesson learned. The human's adaptability, the Nexari's firepower, and Quinlex's fading, but still valuable psychological insights. We moved under the cover of darkness. A silent tide of coordinated precision. Human squads infiltrated the perimeter, disabling sensors and opening paths for the Nexari assault teams. The air was electric with tension, the scent of ozone from discharged energy weapons mingling with the cold night breeze. Each moment demanded rapid decisions and flawless execution. As the battle erupted, I found myself fighting side by side with Foster and his squad, our movements synchronized despite our different anatomies and instincts. The Silent responded with ferocity, but we countered with a fluidity that bewildered them. When a sudden breach threatened to overwhelm our position, Maya's voice crackled through comms, issuing a new directive. One no Nexari commander would have imagined. We abandoned rigid formations and embraced improvisation. Soldiers took initiative, creating makeshift barriers, repurposing enemy weapons, and shifting priorities in an instant. The battlefield became a dynamic chessboard, pieces moving unpredictably, yet harmoniously toward victory. The exhilaration was intoxicating, a dance of minds and bodies in perfect sync. When the dust settled and the Xylon command center fell, the cost was immense, but so was the triumph. For the first time, I truly understood the power of the human pack bonds. Not just the emotional cohesion, but the mental agility that made them formidable warriors. Quinlex's resignation had marked a turning point. His departure was a silent acknowledgement that the Nexari would never fully comprehend these adaptive minds. But perhaps that was not necessary. What mattered was that we learned to respect and harness their strengths. The humans had rewritten the doctrine of war, reminding every species that adaptability and unity could shatter even the most daunting obstacles. Their minds were living weapons, their bonds unbreakable chains that forged victory from the chaos of conflict. Now, standing here aboard this warship, I carry that lesson with me. The stars beckon with new challenges, and while many will fear the humans for their unpredictable tactics, I know the truth. To fight beside them is to witness evolution itself, a force that can never be contained or predicted, only embraced. As the ship drifted through the void, I closed my eyes and felt the lingering echoes of T-Haros. The roar of battle, the whispered strategies, the unyielding spirit of the human pack. In their adaptive minds lay the future of warfare, a future where every engagement was a new puzzle, every soldier a master of change. And in that future, the Nexari would stand proud, not as strangers, but as brothers, in arms, forever shaped by the human's indomitable will. The scent of scorched earth and ozone lingered faintly in the air as I sat amid the jagged ruins of what had once been a thriving human outpost. The sky above was a bruised canvas of deep purples and fading embers, twilight bleeding into night. The wind whispered mournfully through shattered concrete and twisted metal, carrying with it the distant echoes of a battle now past. Here, in this scarred wasteland on a far-flung planet, I found the final truth behind humanity's terrifying prowess in war, their unbreakable social bonds. I had followed Maya Anderson through countless campaigns, observed her from the shadows as she led her pack of soldiers into the heart of enemy chaos, and I had always suspected that something more profound than mere tactical brilliance fueled their success. The Nexari valued strength, discipline, and honor. Yet the humans wielded something we had never truly fathomed, an intricate web of social connection that transcended the battlefield and bound their souls like an unyielding chain. It had begun during the early skirmishes in the Outer Rim, when Quinlex, my trusted scientist, first attempted to parse the neural patterns and emotional signatures of human squads. The data was confounding. Unlike Nexari units, whose cohesion was maintained through rigid hierarchy and telepathic synchronization, humans exhibited a chaotic, unpredictable emotional resonance. Their bonds were forged not in the cold logic of command, but in something raw and elemental: trust, loyalty, and fierce protectiveness that pulsed beneath their skin like a living flame. As I watched Maya's soldiers move through the twilight, the dim glow of their armor reflecting the dying light, I sensed the invisible threads that tethered them together. It was an unspoken language of glances and subtle signals, a dance of mutual understanding honed through shared hardship. When one faltered, another was there instantly, an instinctive, unhesitating response fueled by empathy rather than order. It was a pack, not a regiment, a family, not just a unit. The terrain around us bore the scars of relentless conflict. Craters pocked the ground like open wounds, and the skeletal remains of war machines lay abandoned, their twisted armor gleaming under the moon's pale gaze. The air was thick with the metallic tang of blood and the acrid smoke of spent plasma rounds. Despite the chaos, a strange calm had settled over the humans. They moved with a fluid grace that belied exhaustion, their eyes sharp and unyielding. I recalled the moments before the battle, when Maya gathered her soldiers in a circle beneath a battered canopy. There were no grand speeches, no strategic drills, only quiet words of encouragement and the clasping of hands. I saw something in those gestures, a reaffirmation of their bond, a reminder that they fought not just for territory or victory, but for each other. It was a revelation that shook me to my core. The next day, as dawn broke over the horizon, the enemy struck with brutal ferocity. Explosions shattered the fragile silence, and the ground trembled beneath the thunder of artillery. Yet, amidst the chaos, the human pack held firm. I observed David Foster, a young soldier with eyes like smoldering coals, shield one of his wounded comrades with his own body as enemy fire rained down. His movements were desperate but precise, a testament to the fierce loyalty that burned within him. He whispered reassurances, words I couldn't understand, but their meaning was clear: I will not leave you behind. The battle raged for hours, the clash of steel and energy weapons a deafening symphony. Human voices rose in battle cries and commands, their cadence fierce and rhythmic, weaving a fabric of defiance against overwhelming odds. When Maya's voice cut through the cacophony, it was not just authority, but a beacon of hope, steady and unwavering. Her presence galvanized the pack, each soldier drawing strength from her resolve and from the collective heartbeat that bound them. What astonished me most was the psychological resilience displayed by the humans. Unlike Nexari units, prone to fracturing under sustained pressure without telepathic support, the humans seemed to draw on each other's strength. Their minds intertwined in a complex network of emotional support. Quinlex's instruments had detected surges of oxytocin and dopamine during combat, a biochemical symphony that reinforced their bonds and banished fear. Their brains synchronized in moments of crisis, creating a shared consciousness that transcended individual survival. After the battle, I walked among the wounded, the moans and hushed conversations painting a portrait of pain and perseverance. The soldiers tended to each other's injuries with practiced care, their hands steady despite exhaustion. There was no hierarchy here, just shared humanity and a refusal to abandon their pack. I saw Maya kneeling beside a fallen soldier, her fingers tracing the lines of his face as if memorizing every detail. In that moment, she was not a commander but a sister, a protector bound by an unbreakable promise. This revelation unsettled the Nexari Psychology Corps. Quinlex, brilliant and meticulous, had spent months trying to categorize these social bonds within our existing frameworks, only to find them resistant to analysis. The humans defied neat classifications. Their emotions were raw and chaotic, yet structured by a deep, primal need for connection. The psychologists, who attempted to decode these relationships, soon found themselves overwhelmed, their theories crumbling in the face of living proof. They quit, unable to reconcile the humans' emotional complexity with our rigid doctrines. As the night deepened, I sat beside Maya's command post, watching the stars emerge in the endless void. The humans spoke little, their voices low and steady, filled with quiet determination. I felt the weight of their history, the centuries of struggle and survival etched into their collective memory. Their pack bonds were not just a strategy. They were a way of life, a testament to the resilience of their species. I thought back to the early days of the conflict, when the Nexari had dismissed humans as unpredictable and fragile. How wrong we had been. Their strength lay not in their weapons or technology, but in their hearts, the fierce, unyielding connections that bound them together. It was a lesson written in blood and sacrifice, one that reshaped our understanding of warfare and camaraderie. In the dying light, I realized that these unbreakable social bonds were the true weapon of humanity. Against overwhelming odds, they had forged a community stronger than any armor, a brotherhood that could withstand pain, fear, and loss. Their pack was their shield, their sword, their legacy. And in this harsh universe, that was a force even the most formidable armies could neither break nor ignore. The wind carried the distant call of the wild, a reminder that even amidst destruction, life endured. The humans had taught me that survival was more than strategy. It was love, loyalty, and the unshakable faith in one another. As I rose to my feet, the weight of this truth settled over me like an ancient oath. The Nexari had fought many battles, but none like this. None that demanded such a profound understanding of the ties that bind a pack. I looked once more at the sleeping forms of the human soldiers, their breaths steady in the night air. Tomorrow, the war would continue, and the universe would bear witness to the legacy of Earth's warriors. Their unbreakable social bonds would echo through the stars, a testament to the power of connection in a fractured cosmos. And so, with the final revelation etched into my soul, I prepared to face whatever horrors lay ahead, knowing that the strength of a pack was more than a tactic. It was the very essence of survival itself. The air was heavy with the metallic scent of scorched earth and burning fuel, a thick haze crawling low across the vast war-torn valley. Jagged silhouettes of shattered machinery and fractured rock littered the landscape like the bones of some long, dead beast. Above, The twin suns of the Nexari homeworld cast an eerie, blood-red glow through the smoke, painting everything in shades of crimson and ash. It was in this hellish tableau that I, Nexkel, watched history unfold. A moment that would forever reshape how our species viewed combat, but more importantly, how we understood the enigmatic creatures we called humans. The ground trembled beneath the advancing thunder of the Nexari armored columns, their heavy treads gouging deep furrows into the scarred soil. Their metallic exoskeletons gleamed under the dying light, weapon systems locked and primed. The enemy had fortified their position atop the jagged ridge, a labyrinthine nest of defensive turrets, energy shields, and genetic traps designed to tear through even the most resilient armor. Our commanders were tense, their mandibles clicking in nervous anticipation, but none more so than I. Across the ravaged no-man's land, the human unit moved with a strange, unsettling grace. Unlike our own rigid formations or the tightly synchronized Nexari squads, they flowed, shifting, weaving, collapsing and reforming as if guided by some unseen current. Maya Anderson led them, a figure marked by calm resolve and steely defiance amidst the chaos. Her soldiers mirrored her, their faces grim but unyielding, bound not by a hierarchical chain of command alone, but by something deeper, a bond that transcended mere orders. I had studied these humans for years, but nothing prepared me for the doctrine they unleashed today. The first moment I realized just how alien their tactics were came when David Foster locked eyes with a charging Nexari assault unit. Instead of retreating or firing immediately, he called out a sharp whistle, a piercing note that cut through the cacophony like a blade. From the rubble behind him, a dozen of his comrades surged forward, converging in a synchronized burst that resembled more a dance than a battle maneuver. Their weapons fired in precise salvos, not indiscriminately but with purpose, targeting the joints and weak points of the Nexari armor. The assault unit faltered, their advance broken by a carefully orchestrated storm of fire. But the true revelation was the way the human pack moved as one organism. Their communication was not merely vocal commands, but an intricate blend of subtle signals. Eye contact, hand gestures, even the tilt of a helmet that we, with our limited understanding, barely noticed. They anticipated each other's moves, covering blind spots without hesitation, their positions overlapping and reinforcing each other with a fluidity that defied traditional tactics. As the Nexari forces pressed forward, trying to leverage sheer firepower and armored might, the humans adapted. When one flank was pinned down by heavy plasma cannons, a squad would slip through the shadows, disappearing beneath the ruins to strike from unexpected angles. If a comrade fell, the pack did not break. Instead, others closed ranks, shielding the wounded as they retreated or regrouped. The cohesion was palpable, not just a military unit, but a living network of trust and shared will. I could almost smell the tension in the air, the acrid burn of energy weapons, mingling with the human scent of sweat and determination. Every breath they took seemed synchronized, every heartbeat a pulse in the collective rhythm of their pack. It was then that Quinn Lex, our leading scientist, whispered to me from the observation deck, eyes wide with a mixture of fascination and horror. Their neural synchronization, it is not just training. It is something primal, ancient. Their minds are linked by more than communication. They share an emotional resonance, a bond forged in what they call pack loyalty. It is unlike anything in Nexari psychology. I nodded, though my jaw clenched in disbelief. Our own species prided itself on discipline and logic. Yet these humans, chaotic, unpredictable, wove emotions and instincts into their warfare in ways we could scarcely comprehend. If this doctrine were allowed to mature unchecked, it would render our most advanced strategies obsolete. The battle escalated swiftly. The humans took to the high ground, darting between cover and crags, their bodies low and swift. David Foster led a flanking maneuver, signaling with a swift motion that sent a ripple through the pack. His unit vanished beneath the enemy's defenses, only to erupt moments later in a brutal, close-quarters assault that tore through Nexari lines with ruthless precision. Blades flashed, plasma shot arced, and Nexari warriors fell, caught off guard by the ferocity and coordination of the human strike. I felt a strange mixture of horror and admiration. The humans fought not with cold calculation, but with a fierce protective instinct, each soldier's survival linked inseparably to the others. When Maya Anderson's voice came over the calm but resolute, I realized what I had been witnessing was not just a tactic, but a culture. One where loyalty, trust, and sacrifice intertwined to form an unbreakable chain. Our commanders tried to counter, deploying drone swarms and orbital bombardment, but the humans endured. Their pack folded and flexed, absorbing blows and retaliating with an adaptability that defied expectation. Their movements were a living enigma, a symphony of war that shredded the predictability we held dear. I saw David Foster fall, struck down by a plasma lance to the chest. But instead of panic, the pack surged around him, shielding his body, dragging him back with unrelenting tenacity. The wounded were never abandoned. The pack's cohesion held, even in the face of death. The valley echoed with the thunder of explosions and the sharp clang of metal on metal. The Nexari assault stalled, our forces bleeding under a barrage of precise, coordinated attacks. I watched as Maya Anderson led a final charge, her presence a beacon drawing the pack into a crescendo of violence and will. They broke through the enemy's defenses with a raw, primal fury, a tidal wave of flesh and steel. When the dust settled, the ridge was ours, but at a cost that weighed heavily on every observer. The humans stood battered but unbroken, a testament to their doctrine and their unyielding pack bonds. Even as the Nexari forces regrouped, a new reality crystallized in my mind. This was no mere army, this was a living organism, evolving and adapting in ways that rendered old tactics obsolete. I inhaled deeply, tasting the bittersweet tang of victory tainted by the knowledge of what lay ahead. The humans had unleashed a doctrine born not of machines or cold logic, but of something far more potent. The unbreakable ties that bind them together, forged in trust, sacrifice, and a profound empathy that transcended species. And as I stood there, amid the ruins and the fading echoes of battle, I understood why our own psychologists had quit. No theory, no analysis could fully capture the depth of the human pack bonds. It was something you had to see, feel, and fight alongside to truly grasp. The doctrine they wielded was a living testament to the power of connection, a force that would shape the future of warfare across the stars. I lowered my gaze to the fallen and the survivors, the silent promise in their eyes. This was only the beginning. The sun fell away behind the jagged horizon of the war-torn planet, casting long shadows that stretched like grasping fingers across the cracked earth. The acrid scent of burnt metal and scorched foliage hung heavy in the air, mingling with the faint coppery smell of dried blood. Smoke trailed lazily upward from distant fires, a ghostly reminder of the ferocity that had raged here only hours before. Amidst this desolation stood Nexkel, the seasoned Nexari commander, his armored form silhouetted against the dying light. Eyes fixed on the ruins, where the final battle had sealed the fate of this conflict and forged a bond he could scarcely have predicted. He breathed in deeply, the desert wind whisking grit into his nostrils, mingling with the still pulsating tension that clung to the atmosphere. The battlefield was silent now, save for the faint crackle of embers and the distant murmurs of his soldiers gathering their wounded or securing the perimeter. The chaos that had once defined this place had given way to an uneasy calm. But within Nexkel's mind, the echoes of battle thundered still, vivid, and unrelenting. He thought back to the moment when Maya Anderson had taken command, stepping forward with that unyielding human resolve. Her voice, steady and sharp as a blade, had cut through the confusion with clarity and purpose. It was that unshakable certainty, so deeply ingrained in her species' ethos, that had changed everything. Before then, he had regarded humans as unpredictable, volatile, an unknown variable in the equation of warfare. But now, after witnessing their pack bonds in action, he understood humans did not merely fight as individuals or units. They fought as a single living entity, a cohesive organism bound by trust, loyalty, and an unbreakable pack instinct. The memory of that final engagement burned bright in his mind. The enemy had been relentless, pressing their assault with brutal efficiency, flipping the battlefield into chaos within moments. Nexkel had deployed his Nexari warriors in calculated formations, relying on their traditional tactics, honed over centuries. But it was the humans who had shifted the tide with their unconventional synergy. He remembered watching David Foster, a young human soldier, moving not as a lone fighter, but as an extension of his squad, anticipating threats and responding with seamless coordination. The way Foster's eyes scanned the ruined streets, the subtle nods exchanged, the silent signals, all conveyed an intricate understanding that surpassed any algorithm or strategy the Nexari had devised. The battlefield was a symphony of sensory input, the sharp crack of plasma rifles, the distant rumble of orbital bombardments reverberating through the ground, the pungent tang of ozone in the air, where energy weapons had lanced through the sky. Nexkel could almost feel the adrenaline coursing through his own veins, mirroring the charged atmosphere. Yet, it was the quiet moments amidst the storm that had defined the human pack's strength. The way they paused, regrouped, and moved forward as one, their trust in each other an unyielding anchor amid the chaos. As the dust settled, Nexkel found himself reflecting on the implications of what he had witnessed. The Nexari had always prided themselves on discipline and strategy, their warfare shaped by logic and centuries of experience. But humans introduced an element that defied pure calculation raw, primal solidarity tempered by intellectual rigor. It was a paradox that confounded the Nexari psychologists who had attempted to analyze these bonds, their methods unraveling under the complexity of human social dynamics. Nexkel felt a profound respect stirring within him, a quiet acknowledgement of a strength that had eluded his kind. The way Maya had led her troops, commanding not with authoritarian decree, but through shared conviction and mutual reliance, had shattered preconceived notions. She wielded authority with a subtlety that inspired rather than coerced, creating an environment where every soldier was both protector and protected, predator and prey in a delicate balance of interdependence. The landscape around him bore scars that told the story of this transformation. Smoldering wreckage of Nexari war machines lay strewn alongside makeshift human fortifications cobbled from scavenged debris. The mingling footprints of two species crisscrossed the ground, a testament to the intertwined fates they now shared. Nexkel's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the first stars blinked awake in the twilight. Somewhere beyond that veil lay their homeworld, waiting for news of the outcome. For the first time in his long career, he felt a sense of humility, a recognition that survival and victory hinged not just on superior firepower or cunning tactics, but on the intangible threads of trust and kinship. The Nexari veterans gathered slowly around him, their armor clinking softly in the cooling air. Their eyes sought his judgment, searching for answers to the questions that haunted them all. Nexkel met their gazes steadily, the weight of his experiences settling heavily on his shoulders. He recalled the early days of the campaign, when skepticism and doubt had plagued their ranks. The human pack bonds had seemed an enigma, impossible to quantify or predict. But now, having fought alongside these warriors, he understood that their strength was born from something elemental, woven into the very fabric of their existence. He thought of the countless simulations and psychological models Quinlex had painstakingly developed, only to abandon them in frustration. The Nexari psychologists who had studied the humans had been driven to despair, unable to reconcile their clinical detachment with the visceral reality of human camaraderie. Their theories crumbled like brittle glass under the weight of lived experience. For Nexkel, this was no longer an academic puzzle, but a profound lesson etched in the crucible of war. The scent of singed earth and burnt ozone blended with the faint aroma of human sweat and determination. A tangible reminder of the unbreakable bond forged in the crucible of combat. Nexkel allowed himself a brief moment of introspection, his mind sifting through the tangled emotions and hard-won revelations. He felt a slow, steady pulse of admiration, tempered by a cautious hope for the future. The humans had taught him that true strength lay not in isolation but in unity, a lesson that transcended species and culture. As darkness fully embraced the battlefield, the silhouettes of human and Nexari soldiers moved together, tending to the wounded and securing their hard-won position. The stars above shimmered like distant beacons, silent witnesses to the dawn of a new era. Nexkel's thoughts drifted to the countless battles yet to come, the challenges that would test this newfound alliance. But he was no longer burdened by doubt or fear. Instead, a quiet resolve settled within him, a commitment to honor the lessons learned and to carry forward the legacy of respect forged in fire. He remembered the final moments before the enemy's collapse, the coordinated charge led by Maya, her voice a rallying cry that echoed through the smoky air. The human pack moved as one, a living tide that shattered enemy lines and reclaimed the battlefield. Their ferocity was not born of blind rage, but of a profound connection that transcended mere survival. It was a bond that made them formidable, unpredictable, and unstoppable. Nexkel exhaled slowly, the cool night air soothing the burn of adrenaline. He traced the faint scars along his forearm, reminders of close calls and narrow escapes, each one a testament to the human pack's unyielding trust. The battlefield had been their forge, and from it emerged a unity that neither species could have achieved alone. He glanced toward the distant campfires, where human laughter and Nexari murmurs mingled, a rare moment of camaraderie in the shadow of war. It was a fragile peace, but a precious one. Nexkel knew that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges. Political tensions, cultural misunderstandings, the relentless grind of interstellar conflict. Yet, the lessons etched in this battle would guide them. That strength is born in connection, that trust is the foundation of power, and that even in the darkest moments, hope could be found in the bonds between warriors. The Nexari commander lowered his gaze to the ground, envisioning the future, the generations of soldiers who would carry forward this legacy of unity. He imagined the stories told around campfires, the shared memories that would bind human and Nexari alike. In that vision, he saw not just allies but kin, forged in the crucible of battle and tempered by mutual respect. The night deepened, stars wheeling overhead like silent sentinels. Nexkel's heart beat steady, a rhythm now joined by the steady pulse of the human pack beside him. Together, they had faced the abyss and emerged stronger, their bond unbreakable and their resolve unshaken. In that moment, amidst the ruins and the quiet, Nexkel felt the weight of history settle on his shoulders, not as a burden, but as a mantle of honor. The humans had changed the course of the war, and in doing so, they had changed him. The Nexari would never be the same, for they had glimpsed the power of a bond that transcended logic, a bond born in fire and tempered by trust. He stood tall against the night, the last light fading from the horizon, and for the first time in his long career, Nexkel allowed himself to hope, not just for victory, but for a future where the strength of many could overcome the might of any. The battlefield was silent once more, but the echoes of that human pack bond reverberated through the cosmos, a testament to what could be achieved when warriors fought not as individuals, but as one.